Hello and welcome to this lab session. In this lesson, we will look at how to create data frames in R. A data frame is a table or a two-dimensional array-like structure in which each column contains values of one variable and each row contains one set of values from each column. The data stored in a data frame can be of numeric, factor, or character type. Let's create a data frame for the student data where we have the student IDs, their names and their marks. So to create a data frame, we use the function data.frame. Here we give the name to the data frame as student.data, and inside the data.frame function, we have three arguments. First is the student ID, that is from 1 to 5. Then we have the student names. So here are the 5 names: Williams, James, Olivia, Steve and David. And last is their marks, student marks for each student. Let's create it and let's run this. So our data frame is created. To display the data frame, simply write its name and run it. So here you can see the tabulated data we just created, where we have the student IDs, their names and their marks, and the columns headings we just assigned in the data frame. To look at the structure of the data frame, we use the function str. Let's run it. This gives the complete information along with each column data type. To look at the summary of the data frame, just use the summary function. Here when I run it, this gives the complete summary of the data we have. And for the numeric values, it shows the statistics data, and for the strings, its length and class. Length of the function is used to look at the length of the data frames. This basically gives us the column count in most of the cases. So here it returns 3 as we have 3 columns as well. Then we have the dimension function, which gives the information about the number of rows and columns. So we have 5 rows and 3 columns. We can also check the rows and columns individually as well. Okay, then we have the attribute function. This shows the overall information of the data frame, its names, class and row names. Alright, so here in line 38, I will declare a new data frame which contains the user data. So we have serial numbers from 1 to 5. Then we have names, their ages and their heights. Let's print the data frame and run line 38. This time we will look at how to write the data frame to a CSV file. For this, we use the function write.csv. The input arguments are the data frame, then the name of the file that you want to save with, and then giving raw names as false because we don't want raw names to be in the CSV files. If you want them, just change it to true. Let's run it. Here you can see in the file list, the CSV is created. Let me open it for you. So here is our saved data. We can also import the data as a data frame. Here I have the famous Titanic dataset. You can also find the file for it in the resource section as well. So to import a file, we use the function read.csv and give the file name. I have directly given the file name because it is in my current working directory. Now let's save it in the Titanic dataset variable first. Then I will convert it into the data frame. Let's print it. So here you can see the data frame for Titanic dataset is printed. This is how you create data frames in R. Export them to a CSV file and import a CSV file as a data frame. In this lesson, we will look at how to access the data frames in R. So here we have the two data frames. One is for the student marks for the English course, and the other is for the student marks for the mathematics course. Let's create the two data frames. So for that, I will run the code. Okay, so the two data frames has been created. Now next, let's access the student.data data frame. So here in line number 19, I will access the first column of the data frame. Let's run it. So you see, it returns the student IDs from the student.data.maths data frame. You can also use the negative integer indexing. So the phenomena is the same as here in line 22, I have written -2. This means that we will access all the columns of the data frames except for the column 2. Let's run it. So here you see we get the first and the third column of the data frame. Columns of the data frames can also be accessed using the $sign. So to access the respective columns, we write the data frame name. Like I have written here student.data.maths, and after the $sign, I am to access the column with name student_marks_maths. So this will access the marks column for this data frame. Let's run it. And here it returns the marks values in the form of the vector. Now we can also access the columns of the data frame and save itself in a data frame format. Like here in line number 28, we are storing the column names and marks from the student.data_English data frame and storing it in variable marks_English. Let's store it and then let's print the result. So here we get the table in which we have the names and their marks for the English course. Now we will look at how to combine different data frames in a variable. So we have the student IDs and student names in both the data frames we declared, right? So what I'm to do is store the marks of the student for both the courses English and maths in a single variable. So here we are accessing the complete data frame student.data_English and only the marks column which is at index 3 of the data maths data frame. Let's run it and print the result. So here you can see we get the combined data frames with student names and their marks for both the courses. The same can also be done using the $sign to access the same index column that contains the student marks in the student.data.maths data frame. Now let's execute line 35 and 36. And here you will find the same results. And here it is. So we get the same result as before. You can also export the file in a CSV format. So to do so, we use the write.csv function. Here I am saving the result data frame as marks.csv. And I am not saving the raw names, just the column names. So let's run this. And the file is created in the current working directory. Let's refresh it. And here is the file. Let's open it. So this is the output. So this is how we access the data frames in R. In this lesson, we will look at how to modify the values and update the values of the data frames in R. Here I will first declare the data frame with the name student.data_English. It is the same as the previous ones. Let me create it and print the data frame. So the first transformation we will do to our data frame is adding a new column to the created data frame. I will add a new column which will represent the grades for the marks of the students. So for this we use the cbind function, short for column bind. This binds the newly defined column with the previous columns of the data frame. The column name is assigned as grades. Now let me run line 17. Now let's print the updated data frame. So here you can see that we have the updated data frame with the grades column now in it. You can also add a new data entry for the whole data frame. So over here in the line 24, I have defined a new student data. This his name, ID, marks and grades. Now let me create this data. So let's run it. Now let me print the new student data for you. Here you can see we have his ID as 6, name as George, his marks, and his grades as well. Now I will add this data to the previously created data frame. So to update this entry, we use the rbind function. That is short for raw bind function. Here we have entered the name for data frame, which is update1.std data English, which was the one we added grades in, this one. And then I give the second argument, which is the student data. Let's run it. And let's print the new updated data frame. So here you can see we have the updated data frame with the 6th entry in here. Dropping a raw in the data frame can be done this way. So here I have created a new variable with the name update3.std data English. And from our update2.std data English, we will fetch all the raws except for raw 2. Let's run it and check the newly updated frame. So you see that raw 2, which contained the data for James, is now deleted. In the same way, we can also drop a particular column, like here I will drop the 4th column from our data frame, which is the grades column. And then I will save it in the update4.std data English. So here you can see that the grades column is now dropped. Now let's see how you can get the column of a data frame in the vector format. So over here, I'm accessing the first column of the data frame. Let's run it. So here we get student IDs from 1 to 6. And if we access the same index number using the double square brackets, R returns the values of that column in the form of vectors. So I hope you have got an understanding of how you can transform and modify data frames in R. In this lesson, we will perform some operation on data frames in R. So here I have declared the user data frame, same as before. It contains the names of the user, their ages and their heights. Let's print this data frame. You can see all the columns with different names, their ages and their heights. So as our first operation, I will perform the sum operation on the user.age column. Let's run it. And here we get the answer as 203, which is the sum of all the person ages in our dataset. Similarly, I will calculate the mean. Let me run it. So this is 40.6. Then I will calculate the standard deviation. So it is 13.86. Okay, to search a particular value in the data, we use the %in% function. So here I'm looking for 180 in the data frame column for height. Now let's run it. So it returns false. Also, I will search for 165 and this time it returns true because it is present in the height column. So this is it on how we perform basic operations on data frames in R.